That day seemed like any other, but I had no idea that my life was about to fall apart. My daughter, with a forced smile, said that we were going on a short trip to visit some relatives. Naive and trusting, I grabbed my simple bag and went with her, believing that it would be just another mother-daughter outing, like so many times in the past. When we arrived at the bus station, something struck me as strange. She was restless, looking around as if she was in a hurry, and avoiding my gaze. I tried to start a conversation, but her answers were short, cold, as if she wanted to end that moment quickly. It was then that, with a serious expression, she turned to me and said, without any emotion, "Mom, I can't take care of you anymore. It will be better for both of us here." At that moment, my legs went weak. My heart raced. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to argue, to beg, but she just put a small bag in my hands, with some clothes and some change, turned her back and got into her husband's car. Without even looking back, he left, leaving me alone there, at the bus station, surrounded by strangers and the cruelest loneliness I have ever felt in my life. I remained motionless for a few minutes, trying to understand how that girl I had raised with so much love and sacrifice could do that to me. My eyes filled with tears. Fear took over. I didn't know what to do, where to go, or who to look for. I was alone in the world, but what had led me to this moment? How had my story reached this point? Before that cruel day at the bus station, there had been a beautiful story between me and my daughter. I had always dreamed of being a mother. When she was born, it was the happiest day of my life. I remember it as if it were yesterday, her little eyes shining, her little hands holding my finger for the first time. There, I promised myself that I would do everything for that child, and I did. Life was never easy. Her father abandoned us when she was still a baby. I had to be a mother, a father, a friend, and a protector. I worked hard. During the day, I washed clothes for others, cleaned neighbors' houses. At night, I sewed to supplement my income. There was no time left for me, but every penny I earned went to give her a decent life, even with all the difficulties. I never let there be food on the table, clean clothes, or a smile on my face. I deprived myself of everything. If I had enough money for a new blouse, it was hers. If there was a single piece of fruit left over, she ate it. I fed on the joy of seeing her well. On her birthdays, even without much money, I would make a simple cake and decorate it with colorful balloons, just to see the sparkle in her eyes. I remember the times she would run to me, hug me tightly and say, "Asterisk," and I believed that that love was eternal, unshakable. When she became a young woman, I did everything I could to help her study. I took on extra jobs to pay for school, bought used books, and always encouraged her to dream big. "Daughter, studying is your gateway to a better life," I would say, and she seemed to understand. I made sacrifices that only a mother knows. Many times, I spent sleepless nights worrying about her future, but each of her achievements was a victory for me too. When she got her first job, when she graduated, when she told me she was in love and was going to get married, I was filled with pride. In my head, all that love and sacrifice would make us inseparable. I believed that, just as I took care of her, one day she would take care of me, when I no longer had the strength. But I was wrong. What I didn't know was that, little by little, that love would be eroded. And what started out as affection would end up leading me to the loneliness of that bus station. For many years, our life was difficult, but with a lot of love and togetherness. I felt that all my effort was worth it, because I saw in my daughter a kind-hearted, polite, and hardworking girl. Until one day, everything started to change, and I didn't even realize how much that meeting would transform our lives. It was on a Sunday afternoon, when she came home with a different sparkle in her eyes and a shy smile on her lips. "Mom, I want to introduce you to someone very special," she said, holding the hands of a boy who entered right behind her. He seemed polite, spoke kindly, and praised how dedicated my daughter was, and how great a job I had done as a mother. He was apparently a good guy. Like any mother, I was happy to see my daughter loving and being loved. In the first few months, everything seemed like a dream. He would always come to visit us, bring flowers, help with small renovations around the house, talk to me, call me his second mother. My daughter was overjoyed, but little by little, his behavior began to change, and what seemed like affection became control. He began to decide who my daughter could talk to, where she could go, what she should wear. If I asked her out, he would make an excuse, saying that she needed to rest or that they had other commitments. I felt like I was being pushed away, but I tried not to think the worst. After all, every marriage requires adjustments, I told myself. Asterisk her conversations with me decreased. The calls became more spaced out. When I called, sometimes he would answer the phone himself and say, "Mrs. Maria so-and-so is resting now. I'm letting her know you called." Little by little, the contact that used to be daily became weekly, then bi-weekly, and finally almost non-existent. My mother's heart was tightening more and more. My daughter was slipping through my fingers like fine sand, and I couldn't hold on. One day, I needed help to a doctor's appointment. I called and asked her to come with me. On the other end of the line, her silence was painful, and after a few seconds, I heard a firm, almost cold voice. "Mom, I can't. I have other priorities now. I hope you understand." That hurt me. I, who had always been by her side through everything, was now treated like a burden. But still, I continued to believe that it was a phase, that she would realize and come back. What I didn't know was that things were only starting to get worse. His influence over her was becoming stronger and stronger. And while I dreamed of getting back together, they, secretly, were already planning what they would do to me. This story still has a lot to tell, and that's when everything starts to fall apart. As the months went by, it became impossible to ignore what was happening. The visits, which were once full of joy and complicity, were now reduced to dry, almost obligatory encounters. My daughter no longer hugged me with the same tenderness as before. Her gaze was always distant, as if she carried a weight or a secret that she didn't want to share with me. When I finally decided to visit her, I realized how much things had changed. The house, once full of life, was silent. She welcomed me with a forced smile, and her son-in-law barely hid his discomfort with my presence. With every word I said, I could feel a tense atmosphere in the air. Everything I did seemed wrong. If I commented on the food, I was seen as critical. If I talked about missing someone, I was labeled dramatic. Little by little, I realized that my presence was no longer welcome. Conversations that used to last for hours became monosyllabic. When I gave advice, she would respond with a simple, "Okay, Mom," looking at her cell phone or looking away. Her son-in-law then made a point of making indirect comments. "You have to know when to give space to the young people, don't you, Mrs. Maria?" That phrase kept ringing in my head day and night. Me, a nuisance. After everything I've done, after every night I've been up all night, every illness I've overcome, every hidden sacrifice. Even so, I held back my tears and tried not to create conflict. After all, she was still my daughter. I told myself, it will pass, she will realize. But what came next was even worse. My calls started to be ignored more often. When I called, they either went straight to voicemail, or she answered in a hurry, saying she was busy. I started hearing from neighbors and relatives that my son-in-law openly spoke badly of me. He said I was a difficult, manipulative woman who played the victim. To get attention, the pain of hearing these things from other people's mouths was indescribable. I never imagined I would be the target of so many lies, precisely from the person who should respect me as a mother-in-law and thank me for everything I did for his wife. My daughter, who used to be so sweet, started repeating the same speeches, as if she was poisoned by her husband's words. "Mom, you need to understand that I have my own life now, my own family. I can't be worrying about you all the time anymore." These words, spoken without emotion, were killing me inside. I, who had always been her safe haven, was now treated like a burden, an unwanted obligation. Even with all this, what happened next was the real final blow. I could never have imagined what they were planning behind my back. While I was trying to hold on to the few crumbs of attention I still received from my daughter, something darker was being plotted behind my back. I could already feel the distance. But what I didn't know was that this distance wasn't natural. It was planned, cold, calculated, cowardly. Her son-in-law, who had seemed kind from the beginning, now showed his true colors. He began to pressure her more and more, with whispered words in moments of fragility. He planted in her head the idea that I was a burden, an unsustainable weight. Honey, your mother has already lived her life, now it's our turn. You can't sacrifice your happiness for her sake. My daughter, caught up in this poisonous speech, began to see everything in a distorted way. That woman who used to say I was her heroine, now saw me as a problem to be solved. as if I were an annoying task, something that was getting in the way of the perfect marriage she dreamed of. That the visits disappeared completely. The phone calls became non-existent. When I tried to contact her, the same excuse always came. Mom, we're very busy. We'll talk later. Until one day, after weeks of silence, she showed up at my house. But she didn't come alone. He was there, with that cynical expression, holding my daughter by the shoulder as if he were guiding a fragile child. We sat in the living room. The atmosphere was heavy. The silence was loud. I tried to make conversation, but I soon realized the real reason for the visit. My daughter, her face down, her voice trembling, began to speak. Mom, we talked a lot. It's getting harder and harder to keep up with everything. Your expenses, your appointments, and our lives are all so tight. We thought it might be better to look for a place where they can take care of you. A nursing home, a shelter, where there are professionals who know how to deal with your needs. My heart froze. The blood seemed to no longer circulate in my veins. I could barely answer. I felt such great pain, as if someone had ripped my heart out with their own hands. The son-in-law, trying to soften his cruelty, added, "It's for your own good, Mrs. Maria. You'll be taken care of, and have the company of other people your age. It'll be better for everyone." Better for who? I asked myself, as I felt my eyes well up. All I ever wanted was to be close to my daughter. I didn't need luxury, money, or anything. I just wanted her love and respect. And now, in my old age, I was being discarded like an old piece of furniture taking up space. But the worst was yet to come. Their plan wasn't just to put me in a nursing home. They had already decided on something even more cruel. Something that no one, not even in their worst nightmare, would expect from their child. They had everything ready, and I, Francia, had no idea that I would soon be taken, not to a shelter, but to the coldest and most painful abandonment a mother can experience. The day arrived like any other. The sun rose timidly, and I, unaware of what was about to happen, woke up early, arranged my few belongings, and, as I always did, made myself a simple coffee. My daughter called me that morning with a surprisingly sweet voice. She sounded like the daughter of old, as if she was trying to soothe my soul. Mom, today we're going to take you to a really nice place, okay? It's a quiet little town, with really nice people. It'll be great for you to rest and be well taken care of. For a few seconds, I confessed that I was filled with hope. Maybe, I thought, she had changed her mind. Maybe she had found a place where I could feel welcomed. Who knows, it might even be a temporary home, close to her. After all, she was my daughter, and even with everything, I still wanted to believe that there was still a little love left in her heart. She arrived accompanied by her husband. As usual, he was carrying 2 small suitcases with some of my clothes and personal belongings. I thought it was strange that there were so few things, but, still trying to be positive, I remained silent. My heart was beating fast, restless, but I tried to hide it with a fragile smile. We got into the car. The drive was long and silent. They didn't talk much, and whenever I tried to start a conversation, the answers came dryly and automatically. I watched the road and felt a lump in my throat grow with every kilometer. I didn't recognize the road. There was no clinic, no nursing home, no quiet, welcoming house like she had described, just busy streets, buses passing by, people coming and going, until, suddenly, the car stopped. "We're here, Mom." I looked out the window. It was the bus station, small, busy, and cold. People running from one side to the other, carrying suitcases, families saying goodbye, and others reuniting, but there was no one waiting for me there. There was no one to welcome me, but here, I asked, confused. My daughter quickly got out of the car and, together with her husband, placed my suitcases on a bench. She held me by the shoulders, with a forced smile and words that felt like knives cutting my soul. "Mom, now you're going to catch the bus. They'll welcome you at your destination and take care of you. I've already arranged everything, so you can rest assured." I looked around, searching for someone, some sign that this made sense. There was no one. My heart screamed that something was wrong. I tried to insist. "Daughter, don't leave yet, for the love of God," but she looked away. And that was when I heard the cruelest words of that morning. "Mom, I have to go. I have my own life now too. No more." Without a hug, without a kiss, without even looking me in the eyes one last time, she got into the car with her husband and left. I was left there, alone, with the 2 small suitcases at my feet, surrounded by strangers and with my chest crushed with pain. People passed by and looked at me with pity, as if they saw in me the portrait of loneliness and abandonment. I sat on the cold bench at the bus station and cried. I cried like I had never cried in my life. I, who had given my life for her, was discarded like a useless burden. At that moment, I understood what it was like to be truly abandoned, not only left alone, but rejected by the one you love most. It was the end of a story that I never thought would have this outcome. But what I didn't know yet was that abandonment would be the beginning of a new and surprising chapter in my life. Hours turned into days, and the days seemed like eternities. Sitting there, on that cold and uncomfortable bench at the bus station, I watched other people's lives pass before my eyes. Families hugging each other, children receiving affection from their mothers, people arriving and leaving with hope in their eyes. And there I was, alone, forgotten. The first night was the cruelest. With nowhere to go, I huddled over my own suitcases, trying to protect myself from the cold wind that cut like a razor. Every horn, every loud noise made me shiver. Fear took over me. Fear of strangers, fear of the darkness, fear of what could happen. The security guards passed by, looked suspiciously, but said nothing. It was as if I were invisible. I, who had once been strong, a fighter, a hard worker, was now just another abandoned elderly woman among so many other urban dramas. The money I had in my pocket was little, barely enough to buy water and a loaf of dry bread. During the day, I would walk around the neighborhood, looking for shade, a quiet corner, something that would give me a little security. But the city was merciless. No one wanted to know my story. People passed by in a hurry. Some even looked at me with pity, others with indifference. Some even whispered, "Poor thing. She must be some old lady from the street." Each whisper was like a knife slowly stabbing me. Because I wasn't an old lady from the street, I had a house, I had a family. Or I thought I did, but I was thrown there, like a nuisance, like a problem that no one wanted to carry anymore. The following nights only got worse. Hunger began to set in. I rummaged through my small purse, trying to stretch the little money I had left. Sometimes, someone kind would offer me a coffee, a piece of bread. It was in these small acts of kindness that I found a glimmer of hope to carry on. My sleep was interrupted all the time by the cold, by the sounds of the bus station, by the screams, by the fears that haunted me. My eyes burned with tears that would not stop falling. I prayed every night, asking God for a way out, for light, for help. And I always asked, "Lord, why? Why did my own daughter do this to me? What did I do so wrong to deserve this?" The hardest part was seeing mothers and children around, hugging each other, saying goodbye with promises of a quick reunion. It was impossible not to wonder where I had failed as a mother. I blamed myself all the time. I remembered every sacrifice, every sleepless night when she was a baby, every time I had given up on myself for her. Now, her silence was the worst torture. No calls, no messages, no concern. It was as if I had never existed in her life. But even in this hell of loneliness, something inside me still resisted. A small voice, almost extinguished, but that insisted on saying, "Don't give up. There is still a purpose for your life." And it was this small flame of hope that kept me alive. Because what came next completely changed my story. When everything seemed hopeless, when my heart was already exhausted from so much suffering, that was exactly when something began to change. It was a cloudy morning. The overcast sky seemed to reflect the weight I carried in my soul. I was sitting on the same bench as always, with my hands clasped, my head bowed, praying silently. My eyes were burning from the many tears I had shed in the last few days. My body was already showing signs of weakness, and the hope that had held up until then was beginning to fade. It was then that I heard a soft, concerned voice. "Are you okay, ma'am? Do you need anything?" I slowly looked up. Before me was a middle-aged woman with a kind smile and a look full of compassion. It was Mrs. Clarice, someone I had never seen before, but who, from that moment on, would change my life profoundly. Embarrassed, tried to disguise the situation. "I'm just waiting for a bus, my dear." But she wasn't convinced. Clarice had that rare gift of seeing beyond words. She noticed my lost gaze, my haggard face, my trembling hands. She gently sat down next to me and said, "Look, I work nearby. I pass by this bus station every day, and for days I've been watching you. Always alone, always on that bench. It doesn't seem like you're waiting for a bus. You can trust me. At that moment, something inside me broke. I burst into tears. I told her everything, from the abandonment of my daughter, the lies, the bus station, the cold, the hunger, the fear, the loneliness. Clarisse listened to every word carefully, holding my hands affectionately. When I finished my outburst, she wiped my tears with a handkerchief and said firmly, "You will not go through this alone anymore. I will help you," and she kept her promise. That same day, she took me to her house, offered me a hot bath, real food, and, most importantly, something I hadn't received in days: respect and dignity. Her family welcomed me with a warmth that I hadn't felt in a long time. They treated me not as a burden, but as someone who deserved love and care. There, in that simple house, I once again felt what it was like to belong to a home. Clarisse began to look for solutions for my situation. She contacted social workers, sought legal help, and, with the help of good people, began to put together a plan so that I would no longer have to live in fear of being abandoned again. But the most beautiful thing was realizing that, in the midst of the cruelest abandonment, there are still good-hearted people in this world. People who didn't see me as a disposable elderly woman, but rather a life full of stories, struggles, and deserving of respect. And that's when, little by little, I began to rebuild my life. But the story doesn't end there. Because what happened next was even more surprising and affected everyone around me, including my own daughter. Months have passed since that terrible day at the bus station. With Clarisse's help and her generosity, I was able to gradually rebuild my dignity. I received support from social workers, medical examinations, and even psychological support to try to heal the deep wounds that abandonment had left in my soul. But even though my body recovered, the wound in my heart still bled. My daughter's abandonment was like a knife stuck in my chest, which, even with time, insisted on hurting. There was not a single day that I didn't think about her, that I didn't wonder what had led her to do that. It was then that fate, like one of those plots that we can't even believe is real, arranged an unexpected reunion. One morning, Clarisse invited me to accompany her to a community center. She had found me a group with other women where we could do activities, talk, and share life stories. I accepted, with a light heart, trying to truly start over. When we got there, while we were waiting for the activity to start, I heard a familiar voice echoing in the hallway. My heart froze. It was her voice, my daughter. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. My hands froze, my vision blurred. I turned around slowly, and there she was, head down, talking to an employee at the center. She looked haggard, her eyes puffy, as if she was also carrying the weight of sleepless nights and unresolved guilt. For a moment, I thought about hiding, not showing myself. The fear of rejection paralyzed me again. But before I could do anything, she saw me. Her eyes met mine. There was absolute silence. It seemed like the world stopped around us. No words came out, only tears began to fall, hers and mine. With trembling steps, she slowly approached until she was facing me. Her voice came out, choked, almost in a whisper. "Mom, forgive me, forgive me, for the love of God." I didn't know what to say. That daughter who had left me at the bus station was now there, falling apart in front of me, overcome with regret. She continued, "I don't know what came over me, Mom. I made a mistake. I was a coward, weak. I let myself be carried away by pressures, by problems. I couldn't deal with everything, and instead of seeking help, I took it all out on you. Forgive me, Mom, I can't live with this guilt anymore, The tears were already streaming down my face, uncontrollably. There were no words to express the whirlwind I was feeling. Pain, longing, anger, relief, compassion, all at the same time. We stayed like that, face to face, for a few seconds that seemed like an eternity. And then, in a mixture of strength and fragility, I hugged her daughter. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, but if you're truly sorry, I don't want to die carrying hatred in my heart. I've only ever wanted to be loved by you. We hugged each other there, like the mother and daughter we've always been, but whom life had brutally separated. It wasn't the end of the pain, but it was the beginning of a new beginning. That reunion did not erase the scars, but it brought something I no longer expected, the possibility of rebuilding, brick by brick, what was destroyed. And it was there that I learned one of the greatest lessons of my life. Even the worst abandonments can give way to unexpected reunions when there is true repentance and forgiveness. After that reunion with my daughter, life began to take a new direction. It wasn't easy. Rebuilding a relationship broken by abandonment requires time, patience, and, above all, truth. A hug isn't enough to heal years of pain, but that first step was what I needed to believe again. Little by little, my daughter started visiting me regularly. We would sit down to talk, open our hearts, and, above all, listen to each other. For the first time, she started telling me about her pain, her fears, and the pressures she faced when she decided to abandon me, and I, as a mother, was able to see how lost she was at that time. It was hard to hear all of that, to know that my daughter felt suffocated, pressured by financial difficulties, marital problems, and the demands of life. But it was also liberating, because I realized that abandonment wasn't simply evil, it was the result of a desperate, misguided mind incapable of asking for help at the right time. On this healing process, the help of my friend Clarice was fundamental. She never let us give up. She always reminded us, forgiveness does not erase the past, but it allows us to build a future. Over time, my daughter invited me to live with her again, but this time, under very different conditions. It was no longer out of obligation. It was out of love, out of care, out of a genuine desire to have her mother close by. I hesitated, I confess. The fear of being discarded again haunted me. But, little by little, I allowed myself to believe in a new beginning. I moved into her house, where I not only gained a roof over my head, but also a place in her heart and in the heart of my granddaughter, who, until then, I had barely had contact with. The time spent with my granddaughter was a gift that God gave me. I was able to teach her values of respect, love, and faith. I was able to be the comfort she needed, and she was the medicine to heal the wounds that still existed within me. Today, our relationship is different. Not perfect because perfection does not exist, but true. There are sincere conversations, there are apologies when we make mistakes, there is affection, there is care. And, above all, there is the recognition that the love between a mother and a daughter can be rebuilt, even after such dark moments. I learned that life can knock us down in unthinkable ways. The abandonment I suffered at the bus station was rock bottom, but the outstretched hand of people like Clarice, the strength of forgiveness, and the courage to start over transformed my story. Today, when I look back, I don't just see pain, I see a journey of learning, of overcoming, and, above all, of rebirth. The storm has passed. The scars remain, yes, but they no longer hurt. Now they tell a story of strength, faith, and reconciliation. And for those who are listening to my story, now, I leave a message. Even in the worst moments of your life, never lose hope. Sometimes, when everything seems lost, God puts people in our path to lift us up. And forgiveness is the bridge that rebuilds what seemed destroyed forever. And if this story touched your heart, as it touched mine, leave your like, because that really helps our channel reach more people with life stories like this. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next exciting stories that are coming. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of faith, forgiveness, and overcoming. Now, I really want to know your opinion. If you were in this mother's place, would you be able to forgive your daughter after everything? Write here in the comments. I make a point of reading each story, each opinion. Thank you very much for being here with me until the end. See you in the next exciting story.